What would you do if you were blind and could see every secret in the world? A reckless millionaire discovered a secret power that was only in legend. The ability to see without eyes, and then he did what no one else could. Imagine you can win every game. You can beat every bet. But what will it cost? Are you ready for this truth? Henry Sugar discovered the secret. Now it's your turn.
Welcome to Englisher. Learn by listening. Your daily dose of English listening and learning practice. This content is used strictly for educational purposes to improve your English listening skills.
Well, here we are now in the hut where I write. I've been in this hut for 30 years now. Well, it's important. Before I start, I like to make sure I have everything around me that I'm going to need. Cigarettes, of course, some coffee, chocolates, and always make sure I have a sharp pencil. Before I start, I have 6 pencils, and then I like to clean my writing board. So many bits of rubber. There. And then finally one starts. And so, usually a few corrections needed. Henry Sugar was 41 years old, unmarried and rich. He was rich because he had a rich father who was now dead. He was unmarried because he was too selfish to share any of his money with a wife. He was 6 feet 2 inches tall and not perhaps as handsome as he thought he was. He paid a great deal of attention to his clothes. He went to an expensive tailor for his suits, to a shirt maker for his shirts, and to a boot maker for his shoes. His hairdresser trimmed his hair once every 10 days, and he always took a manicure at the same time. He drove a Ferrari motor car, which cost him about the same as a country cottage. All his friends were rich, and he had never done a day's work in his life. Men like Henry Sugar can be found drifting like seaweed all over the world. They're not particularly bad men, but they're not good men either. They're simply part of the decoration. All rich people of Henry's type, of course, have one peculiarity in common, a terrific urge to make themselves richer. The 10 million is never enough, nor is 20 million. Always they suffer the insatiable longing for more money, and the terror of waking up one morning and finding nothing in the bank. These people employ various methods to increase their fortunes. Some buy stocks and shares and watch them go up and down. Some buy land or art or diamonds. Some bet on roulette, blackjack, horses. Some indeed bet on anything. Henry Sugar was one of those, and not at all above cheating, by the way. One summer weekend, Henry drove down from London to the countryside to stay with Sir William W. The house was magnificent. So were the grounds. But when Henry arrived that Saturday, it was already pelting with rain. The host and his other guests whiled away the afternoon playing games. While Henry glumly stared out at the drops, splashing against the windows, Henry wandered out of the drawing room and into the front hall. He drifted through the house, aimless, then finally mooched into the library. Sir William's father had been an important book collector, and all 4 walls of this huge room were lined with beautiful antiquated leather-bound volumes floor to ceiling. Henry Sugar wasn't interested. The only books he read were detective novels and thrillers. Nothing like that here. He was about to leave when his eye was caught and held by something quite different. It was so slim he never would have noticed it if it had been sticking out a little from the books on either side. He pulled it from the shelf. It was actually nothing more than a cardboard exercise book of the kind that children use at school. The cover was dark blue, but there was nothing written on it. On the first page, hand-printed in black ink, clear and neat, it said strange. Weird. What is this? He settled himself into an armchair and started from the beginning. The following is what Henry read in the little blue exercise book. My name is B.C. Basudas, head surgeon at Lords and Ladies Hospital, Bombay. On the morning of the 2nd of December, 1935, I was in the doctor's restroom having a cup of tea. 3 other doctors were present with me. Dr. Lurie Hopkinson, Dr. Raju and Dr. Gorge Leather. There was a knock on the door. Come in, I said. Excuse me, please. May I ask you gentlemen a favor? This is a private room, I said. Yes, I know, and I'm very sorry to burst in like this, but I have a most, I think, interesting thing to show you. All four of us were pretty annoyed and we didn't say anything. Gentlemen, I'm a man who can see without using his eyes. He was a small man, about 60, with a white mustache and a curious matting of black hair growing all over the outsides of his ears. You may bandage my head with 50 bandages in any way you wish, and I will still be able to read you a book. He seemed perfectly serious. I felt my curiosity beginning to stir. Come in, please. All right. How many fingers is Dr. Lurie holding up? 7. Once more, I said. 9. Once more, I said. 3. Once more, I said. 3 again. Once more. No fingers. What's a trick? There's no trick. This is a genuine thing I've managed after years of training. What source of training? Forgive me, sir, but that is a private matter. What can we do for you? I work in a traveling theater. We arrived in Bombay today. Tonight we give our opening performance at the Royal Palace Hall. I am billed on the program as Ram Dass, the man who sees without his eyes. Whenever our company arrives in a new town, I go straight to the largest hospital and ask the doctors to bandage my eyes in the most thorough and expert fashion. It is important this job is done by doctors, otherwise people may think I'm cheating. Then I go out into the streets and do a dangerous thing. I looked at the other 3 doctors. Dr. Raju and Dr. Leather had to go back to their patients. But Dr. Lurie said, why not? Let's do the job properly though. Let's make absolutely certain you can't see anything. You are extremely kind. Please do whatever you wish before we bandage him, I said to Dr. Lurie Hopkinson. Let's fill his eye sockets with something soft and solid dough. Perfect. You nip down to the hospital bakery while I take him into the surgery and see his eyelid. I led him down the long hospital corridor to the surgery. Lie down there, please, I said. I took a small bottle of collodion from the cupboard. I'm going to glue your eyelids shut with this stuff. How do I remove it later? Just dab a bit of alcohol carefully below the lashes. That'll dissolve it. Keep your eyes closed while we wait for it to harden, please. 2 minutes passed. Try to open your eyes, I said. Of course he couldn't. I took a lump of Dr. Lurie's dough and plastered it over one of Ram Dass's eyes. I filled the whole socket and let the dough overlap onto the surrounding skin. I did the same with the other eye. I pressed the edges down hard. That isn't too uncomfortable, is it? I asked. Not at all. Thank you. You do the bandaging, I said to Dr. Lurie. My fingers are too sticky. Pleasure. I'll just pop these. Here, Dr. Lurie laid a thick wad of cotton wool on top of Ram Dass's dough-filled eyes. It's stuck in place. Sit up, please. Dr. Lurie wrapped a roll of 3-inch bandage round and round the man's face and head. Please do leave my nose free for breathing. Of course. Sorry, it's going to be a pinch on the tight side. How's that? Splendid, I said. You looked like a man who had suffered some terrible brain operation. How does it feel? It feels very good. I must compliment you, gentlemen, on doing such a thorough job. Ram Dass stood up off the bed and walked straight to the door. Great Parker. Did you see that? He put his hand bright on the doorknob. Dr. Lurie stopped grinning. Ram Dass was walking normally quite briskly along the hospital corridor. Dr. Lurie and I followed 5 yards behind him, and very spooky it was to watch this man with an enormous white and totally bandaged head strolling casually along the corner. He saw it. I cried. He saw that trolley. This is absolutely unbelievable. Dr. Lurie didn't answer. His whole face was rigid with shocked disbelief. Ram Dass came to the stairs and went down with no trouble at all. He didn't even put a hand on the stair rail. Several people were coming up. You can see how they reacted. At the bottom of the stairs, he turned and headed out the doors of the street. Dr. Lurie and I kept close behind him. Below us, in the courtyard, waiting proud of 100 barefoot children, shouted and searched towards our white-headed visitor. He greeted him by holding both hands above his head. He walked directly to a bicycle, mounted it and pedaled the figure eights around the courtyard. The barefoot children chased him, cheering and laughing in his wake. He sped straight out into the chaotically bustling traffic of the busy street, with honking, careening motorcars whizzing around him in every direction. He wrote superbly. For a minute we kept him in sight. Then he turned a corner and was gone. "I can't bring myself to believe it, Dr." Lurie said. "I can't bring myself to believe it." "I can't either," I said. "I think we just witnessed a miracle." The rest of the day I was kept busy with patients in the hospital. At 6 o'clock in the evening, I drove back to my flat for a change of clothes. I took a long cool shower. I drank a whiskey and soda sitting on the veranda with only a towel around my waist. At 10 minutes to 7, I arrived at the Royal Palace Hall. The show lasted 2 hours. To my surprise, I enjoyed it. The juggler, the snake charmer, the fiery to the sword swallower pushed a rapier 4 feet down his throat and into his stomach. Last of all, to a great fanfare of trumpets, our friend Imdad Khan came out to do his act. Members of the audience were called on stage to blindfold him with sheets and scarves before he threw knives all around the small boy's body and shot a tin can off the small boy's head with the revolver. Then, finally, a metal barrel was fitted over his already bandaged head. The boy placed a needle in one of Ram Dass's hands and a length of cotton thread in the other. An enormous magnifying glass was positioned in front of him. With no false moves, he neatly threaded the thread through the eye of the needle. I was flabbergasted. Backstage, I found him concerting quietly on a wooden stool while he removed his stage makeup. "You're curious, Doctor. Am I correct?" "Most curious," I said. Once again, I was struck by the peculiarly thick matting of black hair growing on the outsides of his ears. I'd never seen anything quite like it on any other person. "I have a proposal. I'm not a writer by profession, but if you'll tell me exactly how you develop this power of being able to see without your eyes, I'll take it down as faithfully as I can. Then I'll type it up and try to get it published in the British Medical Journal, or maybe even in some famous magazine. Will that help you to become better known?" "It will help me very much." "Splendid. I have a sort of private shorthand I use for taking down medical histories. I believe I got everything Ram Dass said to me that evening word for word. I give it to you now, exactly as he spoke it. I was born in Gujarat State in 1873. My father's a ticket inspector on the National Railway. One day, a conjurer came to our school and gave a performance. I was spellbound. 2 weeks later, I took all my savings and ran away from home to join a traveling theater company. That was in 1885. I was 12 years old. For 3 years, I traveled with this group all over the Punjab. By the end of it, I was playing top of the bill. All the time, I was saving money, which finally added up to just over 2,000 rupees. At this moment, I heard tell of a great famous yogi who'd acquired the rare power of levitation. It was said that when he prayed, his whole body left the ground and rose up 18 inches into the air. At the very least, a terrific effect. Mustache? I quit the theater company and made my way to the small town on the banks of the Ganges, where rumors said this yogi was living. One day I overheard a traveler mention a hermit he'd encountered not so very far away in the densest jungle, all alone. There was enough for me. I dashed out to hire a horse and cart. As I negotiated with the driver, a man appeared and said he was going in the same direction and suggested we share the ride and split the cost. Wow, what truly fantastic luck! Talking to my companion, I found that he was the disciple of the great yogi himself, and on his way at that very moment to visit his master. I blurted out, "This is the man I'm looking for. Please, may I meet him?" My companion looked at me long and slow. "That is impossible," he said. From this point forward, he refused to answer my questions. However, I managed to learn one small thing. The time of day, the great yogi commenced his meditation. My companion signaled to halt the cart, dismounted, and was gone. I pretended to drive on, but just around the corner, I jumped down and snuck back along the path. Already, the men had disappeared into the jungle. I heard a rustling in the undergrowth. If that's not him, I thought, then it's a tiger, and I'm about to be pounced upon, thoroughly thrashed and eaten in little torn morsels of bloody flesh. It was him. There was not even a shadow of a trace of a path where the man was walking. He was pushing his way between tall bamboos and every kind of heavy vegetation. I crept after him, very quiet, keeping at least 100 yards behind. Whenever I lost sight of him, which was most of the time, I was able to follow the sound of his footsteps. For half an hour this tense game of follow the leader went on. Then suddenly I no longer heard the man in front of me. I stopped and listened. All at once, through the thick undergrowth, I saw a little clearing and two small huts. My heart jumped. There was a small water hole next to the nearest hut with a prayer mat beside it, and above a large baobab tree with beautiful thick leafy branches. All through the great noontime heat I waited on. Through the heavy wet heat of the afternoon I waited. Then as 5 o'clock approached, I quietly climbed up my tree and hid among the leaves. Finally, the great yogi came out of his hut and sat cross-legged on the mat. Each movement he made was calm and gentle. He put his hands palm downward on his knees. He took a long breath through his nostrils, and already I could see a sort of brightness was melting over him for 14 minutes. He remained perfectly still in this position, and then, as I watched, I saw, quite positively, his body slowly lifting off the ground. 12 inches, 15, 18, 22 feet above the pyramid. Up in the tree I said to myself, "There before you is a man sitting in the air." 46 minutes by my watch, his body remained suspended, and then he slowly descended back to earth until his buttocks rested again upon the mat. I climbed down from my tree and ran straight over. The great yogi was washing his hands and feet in a basin. "How long have you been here?" he said sharply. Suddenly he picked up a brick and threw it at me so hard it broke in two as it struck my right leg just below the knee. I have the scar still. I'll show it to you. This was actually a stroke of luck. The great yogi isn't meant to lose his temper and fling brick. The old man was humiliated, remorseful, and deeply disappointed in himself. He explained to me that though he could not take me on as a disciple, he would nevertheless give me some informal instruction in order to make amends for attacking me. An attack I fully deserve, by the way. This was in 1890. I was nearly 17 years old. Now, what was the great yogi's instruction? Here it comes. Mind is a scattered thing. It concerns itself with thousands of different items at once. Things you are seeing around you, things you are hearing and smelling, things you are thinking about, things you are trying not to think about. You must learn to concentrate your mind in such a way that you can visualize at will one item only, and absolutely nothing else. If you work hard at this, you may be able to concentrate your conscious mind on any one object you select for approximately 3.5 minutes. This will take around 20 years of diligent, daily, continual effort. 20 years, I cried. 20 years. It may take longer. 20 years is the usual time, if you're able to do it at all, by the way. I'll be an old man by then. The time varies. Some take 10 years, some take 30. On extremely rare occasions, a special person comes along who's able to develop the power in only 1 or 2 years. But this is 1 in a billion, not you. Is it really that difficult to concentrate the mind for just? Almost impossible. Pause and see. Shut your eyes and think of something. Think of just one object. Visualize it. See it before you. A few seconds your mind will start to wander. Other thoughts will creep in. It's a very difficult thing. Thus spoke the great wise old yogi. And so my exercises began. Each evening I sat down, closed my eyes, and visualized the person I loved best in the world, which was my elder brother, who died aged 10 from a blood disease. I concentrated on picturing his face, but the instant my mind began to wander, I stopped the exercise, rested for several minutes, then I tried again. After 5 years of daily practice, I was able to concentrate absolutely on my brother's face for 1.5 minutes. I was making progress. In the meantime, I began to earn quite good money giving conjuring performances. By nature, my sleight of hand is very good, but always I continued my exercises. Every evening, wherever I was, I settled myself down in a quiet spot and concentrated my mind on my brother's face. Sometimes I lit a candle and began by staring at the flame. A candle flame, as you know, has 3 separate parts, the yellow at the top, the mauve lower down, and the black inside. I placed the candle 16 inches away from my face, absolutely level with my eyes, so I did not have to make even the tiniest adjustments of my eye muscles by looking up or down. I stared at the black part right in the center until everything around me disappeared. Then I shut my eyes and began to concentrate on my brother's face. By 1907, when I was 34 years old, I could concentrate for 3 minutes without any wandering of my mind whatsoever. It was also at this time that I began to become aware of the slight ability, just a queer little feeling that when I closed my eyes and looked at something hard with fierce intensity, I could see the outline of the object I was looking at. I thought of a thing the old yogi had said to me. Certain holy people have been known to develop so great a concentration they can see without using their eyes each night after I performed my exercises with a candle flame. I drank a cup of coffee. Then I blindfolded myself and sat in my chair trying to see without my eyes. I started with a deck of playing cards. I studied the backs. I guessed the values immediately at a 60% success rate. Later I bought maps and navigational charts and pinned them up all around my room. I spent hours looking at them, blindfolded, trying to read the small lettering of the place names in the rivers. Every evening for the next 8 years, I proceeded with this kind of practice. By 1915, I could read a book straight through, cover to cover, blindfolded. I had it. At last I had this power. Of course, as you know, it became my entire conjuring performance. Audiences loved it, but no one ever believed it to be genuine. Still don't. Even doctors such as yourself, who blindfold me in the most expert fashion, refuse to believe anyone can see without his eyes. They forget that there are other ways of sending an image to the brain. Ram Dass called silent. He was tired. What other ways? I asked. Quite honestly, I do not know. The seeing is done by another part of the body. Which part? That night I didn't go to bed. This man would have scientists all over the world, Tony. Somersaults in the air. He must be the most valuable man alive. I had to find out exactly how it was biologically, chemically, magically, that an image could be sent to the brain without using the eyes. Blind people might be able to see, deaf people to hear. Who knows what else? This incredible man must not be ignored, I thought. I started transcribing with great care everything Ram Dass told me that evening. I wrote for 5 hours without stopping. At 8 o'clock the next morning, time to go to the hospital. I finished the most important part, the pages you have just read. I didn't see Dr. Lurie until we met in the doctor's restroom for our tea break. I told him as much as I could in the 10 minutes we had to spare. I'm going back to the theater tonight, I said. We can't lose him now. I'll come with you. At 6:45 that evening, we drove to the Royal Palace Hall. I parked the car and the two of us walked to the theater. There's something wrong, I said. There was no crowd outside the hall and the doors were closed. The poster advertising the show was still in place, but I now saw that someone had printed across it in black paint. Tonight's performance cancelled. There was an old gatekeeper standing by the locked doors. What happened? Someone died. Who? Of course I already knew. The man who sees without his eyes. How? I cried. He went to sleep and never woke up. These things happen. They walk slowly back to the car. I felt an overwhelming sense of grief and anger. I should never have allowed this precious man out of my sight. I should have given him my bed and taken care of him. Ram Dass was a maker of miracles. He had communicated with mysterious and powerful forces far beyond the reach of ordinary people. Now he was dead. That's that, Dr. Lurie said. That's that? Yes, I said. That's that. This is a true and accurate report of everything that took place concerning my 2 meetings with Ram Dass. Well, now that is extremely interesting. This is a terrific piece of information. This could change my life. The piece of information Henry was referring to was that Ram Dass had trained himself to read the value of a playing card from the reverse side. And being, as mentioned, a dishonest gambler, Henry realized at once he could make a fortune. He went downstairs to the butler's pantry and asked for a candle, a candlestick and a ruler. He took them to his bedroom, locked the door, drew the curtains and turned off the lights. He put the candle on the dressing table and pulled up a chair. He noticed with satisfaction that his eyes were exactly level with the wick. Using the ruler, he positioned his face 16 inches from the candle, as indicated in the book. Ram Dass had visualized the face of the person he loved best, which in his case was his deceased brother. Henry didn't have a brother. He decided instead to visualize his own face. As Henry stared into the tiny black area at the center of the candle flame, an extraordinary thing happened. His mind went absolutely blank. His brain ceased fidgeting, and all at once he felt as if his entire body had become encased, snug and cozy within that little black area of burning nothingness. Admittedly, this lasted only 15 seconds, but from that moment on, no matter where he was or what he was doing, he made a point of practicing with the candle 5 times a day. For the first time in his life, he threw himself into something with genuine enthusiasm, and the progress he made was remarkable. After 6 months, he could concentrate absolutely upon the image of his own face for no less than 3 minutes without a single outside thought entering his mind. It's me, Henry thought. I'm the one in a billion gifted with the ability to acquire yoga powers at incredible speed. By the end of the first year, he'd exceeded 5.5 minutes. The time had come. The living room of Henry's London flat, midnight. Henry shakes with excitement as for the first time he places a deck of cards upside down before him and concentrates on the top card. All he can see initially is the very ordinary design of thin red lines on the back, perhaps the most common playing card design in the world. He now shifts his concentration from the pattern itself to the other side of the card. He focuses with great intensity upon the invisible underneath of the card. 30 seconds elapse. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Henry doesn't move a muscle. His now highly developed concentration is absolute. He visualizes the reverse of the playing card. No other thought of any kind is permitted to enter his mind. During the 4th minute, something starts to happen. Slowly, magically, but distinctly, a black blob becomes a spade. A twisty squiggle becomes a 5. The 5 of spades. Fingers quivering. He picks up the card and turns it over. I've done it, he says. Henry becomes a fanatic. He never leaves his flat except to buy food and drink. All day, and often far into the night, he crouches over the cards with the stopwatch beside him, reducing his time second by second. Within a month, he's down to 1.5 minutes. 6 months, 20 seconds, 7 more months, 10 seconds flat. His target is 5. He knows that unless he can read through a card in a maximum of 5 seconds, he won't be able to work the casino successfully. Yet the nearer he gets to his target, the more difficult it becomes to reach it. It takes 4 weeks to get from 10 seconds to 9, 5 more to get from 9 to 8 o'clock. At this stage, hard work no longer bothers him. Of course he's able to work for 12 hours straight, no trouble at all. He knows with absolute certainty he'll get there in the end. The last 2 seconds are the hardest, 11 months, but late one Saturday afternoon, 5 seconds, and he goes straight through the pack, timing himself with every card. 5 seconds, 5 seconds, 5 seconds. How long has it taken him to reach this moment? 3 years and 3 months of uninterrupted effort. There were well over 100 legitimate casinos in London. Henry was a member of no less than 10 of them. Lord's house was his favorite. It was the finest in the land, located in a magnificent Georgian mansion. "Good evening, Mr. Sugar," said the man behind the desk, whose job it was to never forget a face. Henry ascended the marvelous wide staircase and entered the cashier's office. He wrote a check for £10,000. Well-fed women circled the roulette wheel like plump hens around a feeding hopper. Men with crimson faces, cigars between their lips, counted their chips, eyes glittering with greed. For the first time in Henry's life, he looked with distaste upon a room full of frankly horrible rich people. Henry searched for a vacancy directly on the dealer's camera left at any of the blackjack tables. The dealer took Henry's plaque and dropped it into a slot in the table. He was a youngish man with black eyes and gray skin. He never smiled and only spoke when necessary. He had exceptionally slim hands, and there was arithmetic in his fingers. He picked up a wedge of 25 LB chips and placed them in a pile on the table. He didn't need to count them. Those nimble fingers were never wrong. He slid the power to Henry. As Henry stacked his chips in front of him, he glanced at the top card in the dealer's shoe. In 5 seconds he read it as a 10. He pushed out 8 of his chips, £200, the maximum stake allowed for blackjack at Lord's house. He was dealt the 10 for a second card. He got a 919 altogether. On 19 you stick. You sit tight and hope the dealer doesn't get 20 or 21. It's a given. When the dealer came round again to Henry, he said 19 passed on to the next player. "Wait," said Henry. The dealer paused and came back to Henry. He raised his eyebrows and looked at him with those cool black eyes. "You wish to draw to 19, he asked crisply. There were, of course, only 2 ranks in the shoe that wouldn't bust a 19, the ace and the 2. Only an idiot would risk drawing on 19, especially with £200 on the table. The back of the next card to be dealt lay clearly visible. The dealer hadn't touched it. "Yes," Henry said, "another card." The dealer shrugged and dealt it. The 2 of clubs landed neatly in front of Henry alongside the 10 and the 921, the dealer said evenly. His black eyes glanced up again into Henry's face and rested there, silent, watchful. Puzzled. Henry had unbalanced it. He'd rarely have ever seen anyone draw a 19. This fellow had drawn a 19 with the calmest uncertainty that was quite staggering, and he'd won. Henry caught the look in the dealer's eyes and realized that once he'd made a silly mistake, he'd attracted attention. "I beg your pardon." He must never do that again. He must be very careful and even make himself lose occasionally. The game went on. Henry's advantage was so enormous he had difficulty keeping his winnings down to a reasonable sum. In an hour he'd won £30,000. There he stopped. Could just as easily have been $1 million. Thank you. Henry was now almost certainly capable of making money faster than any other person in the entire world. Interesting. Had this been a made-up story instead of a true one, it would have been necessary at this point to invent some kind of a surprising and exciting end for the thing, something dramatic and unusual. For example, Henry could go home to his flat and start counting his money. While doing this, he might suddenly begin to feel unwell. He has a pain in his chest. He decides to go to bed immediately. He takes off his clothes. He walks naked to the cover to put on his pajamas. He passes the full-length mirror against the wall. He stops automatically from force of habit. He starts to concentrate all at once. He sees through his own skin. Like an X-ray, only better, he sees everything. Arteries, veins, the blood pumping through him, liver, kidneys, intestines. He sees his heart beating. He looks at the point in his chest where the pain is coming from and sees a small dark lump inside the large vein leading into the heart on the right-hand side, a blood clot. At first the clot appears to be stationary, then it moves. The movement's very slight, only a millimeter or so. The blood in the vein is pumping up behind the clot and pushing past it, and the clot moves again. It jerks forward about half an inch. Henry watches in terror. He knows a large blood clot which is broken free and is traveling in the vein will ultimately reach the heart. He is about to die. Now that wouldn't be a bad ending for a work of fiction. This story isn't fiction. This story is fact. The only untrue thing about it is Henry's name, which wasn't Henry Sugar. His name has to be protected. Still must be protected. Apart from that, this is a true story. And because it's a true story, it must have the true ending. Here's what actually happened. Henry walked for an hour. The evening was cool and pleasant, the city still wide awake. He could feel the thick bank roll in the inside pocket of his jacket. He patted it gently. A lot of money for an hour's work. Yet he was a puzzled man. He couldn't understand why he felt so little excitement about this tremendous success. This sort of thing had happened to him 3 years ago before he started the yoga business. He'd have gone crazy with excitement. He'd been rushing off to the nearest nightclub to celebrate, and Henry didn't feel excited. He felt sad. Every time he made a bet, he'd been certain to win. There was no thrill, no suspense, no danger. Of course, from now on he knew that he could travel all around the world making millions. But was it going to be any fun? Another thing, was it not entirely possible? The process he'd gone through to acquire yoga powers had completely and utterly changed his entire outlook on life. It was possible. The next morning, Henry woke up late, got out of bed, saw the enormous bundle lying on his dressing table, and didn't want it. "Good morning, sir. That's for you. It's a present. Put it in your pocket. Keep it." The doorbell rang. "What the devil you think you're doing?" "Good morning, officer. I'm sorry about the crowd. I was just giving away some. You're inciting a riot. I do beg your pardon. I won't do it again. They'll soon go away, I'm sure." The policeman at one hand off his hip and produced a 50 lb note. "You got one yourself. This is evidence. Where'd the money come from?" "I wanted to blackjack. I had a tremendously lucky night." Henry gave the name of his club, and the policeman wrote it down in a little book. "Check it up. They'll tell you it's true." The policeman lowered the book. "I don't care." "Don't you?" "Not at all. Not whatsoever. In fact, I believe your story, but that doesn't excuse what you did, even the tiniest little bit." "I didn't do anything illegal, did I?" "Illegal? You're an idiot. If you're lucky enough to win yourself a tremendous big sum of money like that and you want to give it away, you don't throw it out of the window. You give it somewhere. It'll do some good. A hospital, for instance, or an orphanage. There's hospitals and orphanages all over the country got hardly enough money to buy the kids a present for Christmas. Then along comes a spoiled idiot like you who's never known for a minute what it's like to be hard up, and you throw the stuff out into the street." With that, the policeman stomped down the stairs and banged out of the front door, and we didn't move. The policeman's words and the genuine fury with which he'd spoken and struck hard and deep. He was ashamed. It was an awful feeling. Then, very suddenly, all at once, Henry felt a powerful electricity tingling through his entire body, and then began to count him the great and marvelous idea that was to change everything. Henry started pacing up and down, ticking off the points that would make his marvelous idea possible. 1. I'm going to win a very large sum of money each and every day of my life from this moment forward. 2. I must never go to the same casino or once every 6 months. 3. I must never win too much money in one sitting. £50,000 a night. That's my limit. £450,000 a night for 365 days a year. That's £18.25 million. 5. I'll keep moving. No more than 2 or 3 nights at a stretch in any one city. London, Monte Carlo, Cannes, Biarritz, Deauville, Las Vegas, Mexico City, Buenos Aires, Nassau. I'll take the money I make and establish hospitals and orphanages all around the world. I agree. As a dream, that sounds corny and sentimental, but as a reality, and I think I can actually make it work, I don't think it would be corny at all. It would be, I think, wonderfully stupendous. 7. I need a partner. Someone who could sit behind a desk and receive all the money, then send it back out to the people who need it. Someone I could deeply, emphatically, categorically trust forever. John Winston was Henry's accountant. He'd also been Henry's father's accountant. To John Winston's father had been Henry's father's father's accountant. You could be the richest man on earth. I don't want to be the richest man on earth. I can't operate in England. The tax man will take it all. I'll have to move to Switzerland, I suppose, but not tomorrow. I'm not an unattached bachelor like you and their responsibilities. I must talk to my wife and children. I must give notice to my partners in the firm. I must sell my house. I must find another house in Switzerland. I must take the kids out of school. These things take time. 1 year later, Henry had sent just over £120 million to John Winston in Lausanne. The money was delivered 5 days a week to a Swiss company called Winston Sugar LLC. Nobody except John Winston and Henry knew where the money came from and what was going to happen to it. The Monday remittance was always the biggest because it included Henry's take for Friday, Saturday and Sunday when the banks were closed. He moved with astonishing speed, sometimes changing his identity several times in a single week. Often the only clue John Winston had as to Henry's whereabouts was the address of the bank which had sent the money. It was stupendous. Henry died last year, aged 63, from a pulmonary embolism. He saw it coming quite literally, but was very much at peace. He'd been following his plan for just over 20 years. He'd made £644 million. He'd left 21 well-established, well-run children's hospitals and orphanages all around the world, administered and financed from Lausanne by John Winston and his staff. His work was complete. Now, how do I know all this? Good question, I'll tell you. Soon after Henry's death, John Winston telephoned me from Switzerland. He introduced himself simply as the head of a company calling itself Winston Sugar, LLC, and asked if I'd come to Lausanne to see him with a view to writing a brief history of the organization. I don't know how he chose me. He probably had a list of writers and stuck a pin in it. He would pay me well, he said, and added, "A remarkable man has died recently. His name was Henry Sugar. I think people ought to know a bit about what he has done for the world." In my ignorance, I asked whether the story was really interesting enough to merit being put on paper. This annoyed John Winston very much. Perhaps it even offended him. In 5 minutes on the phone, he told me about Henry Sugar's secret career. It was secret no longer. Henry was dead and would never enter another casino again. "I'm coming," I said in Lausanne. I met John Winston, now over 70. Also Max Engelmann, a renowned makeup artist who traveled the world with Henry, creating fantastic disguises to conceal his identity. They were both shattered by Henry's death, Max even more so than John Winston. I loved him. He was a great man. John Winston showed me the original dark blue exercise book written by B.C. Basuda in Bombay in 1935. I later copied it out word for word. "One last question," I said. "You keep calling him Henry Sugar, yet you told me that wasn't his name. Don't you want me to say who he really was when I do the story?" No, John Winston said. Max and I promised never to reveal his identity. Oh, I suppose it'll probably leak out sooner or later. After all, he was from a fairly well-known English family, but I'd appreciate it if you didn't try to find out. Please, just call him plain Mr. Henry Sugar. And that is what I have done,